Tonight's broadcast of the NLRL Sunday League is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TR10 for the last post then of Season 4 here of the NLRL Sunday League. Round 10 of the championship right here at the season finale as when we return, I should say, to the same location where we rounded off last season's championship. Of course, as always, I am Regan Clark. You join us at the heart of British motorsports here, right along the county lines between Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire at the historic Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Founded in 1948 on the remnants of RAF Silverstone, a former RAF bomber base housing pilots and training them for the Vickers Wellington, and it's 3.6 miles and 18 turns in the modern day of FIA Grade 1. Traded hands with Aintree and Brands Hatch over its 75 plus years in operation as the home of Formula One. And as we make our way then into the final round of the championship, we come back to Silverstone as we did in Season 3, albeit that was a delayed round. This was very much so still on schedule. Looking in the calendar, of course, the last stop after Laguna Seca gave us the championship, rounded up there for championship title number 2 for Melvin Milliston. After that second race, also gave us our 14th new race winner, that being Levi Warner of Fats GT. Silverstone set to give us just one more run here in Season 4 before we get on to the reveal of Season 5's calendar. For this driver here, Christian LeBay, it's the last stop he'll have with Aston Martin, a moment that he has shared with us that it has been quite a bittersweet feeling coming into this final race, knowing 43 races now he'll be onto with this V12 Vantage, and this will be the last he spends with that V12 before he makes the move over to Emil Frey Racing Jaguar next season on the move over to the XKG3. It's going to be an exciting one to see what he can do. And on another note of that, he shared that it was quite an inspiring thing to drive in the V12 Vantage. It's such an involving machine. Now, this is, of course, paraphrasing some of the things he told us directly, but from what we were able to gather in our conversations with him over the season, it has been a case where this car has been quite a personal choice to him. It's an involving machine. He wants to show the newer drivers that it is very possible to bring older machines into competitive form with the right kind of preparation, with the right kind of mindset, and really, who better to be the ambassador then for Aston Martin these last 4 seasons than Christian LeBay, the Season 1 champion in the very same 119, albeit a new coat of paint to the one we saw all the way back in Season 1. Now makes its last visit here at its very home grounds. Just across the road, of course, at Dadford Road here in Silverstone is the home of the Aston Martin Formula One team, formerly the site of Force India and then Racing Point. And then not too far, about 60 odd miles from here, is the factories where that V12 Vantage would have been made up in Gaydon, Warwickshire. So really, it has come back home for its final race in the Sunday League. It is almost a bit of a sad thing, really, to say goodbye to that Aston Martin, but hopefully it's going to be for one last hurrah today for that 119. We'll get on to that a little later on, taking a look around the track, and let's get into the topic of the championship standings. Now, albeit we do have an amendment to make in the championship standings. We've just accidentally brought the calendar up there, and we do have an amendment to make. This was just brought through to us by Race Control. The results we are going to show you for the championship standings, this is for the overall standings, that'll be across the top of your screens in a moment's time, are pre-penalty, and we'll explain why, and I'm sure you'll be able to pick up on exactly why that is in a moment's time. Looking in the championship standings then, Melvin Milliston, of course, wrapped everything up for his second and the first ever consecutive championship run in NLRL Sunday League history in Laguna Seca. He's ahead of LeBay in second. Cas van Velzen will be your driver to drop down as he has now moved in the final stop here from Mercedes to, I'm told, Lamborghini. We'll get full confirmation of that in due course. 4th place will be 3rd then for Bajor. Todd will be up at extra position. So too will Beefgartner. James Mason in 7th with Ben Cheeseman 8th. Sam Angel in 9th place, rounding out the top 10. Alan Alexander with 105 points to his name. Getting a look into the session itinerary and then on to the further discussion of the Rookies and Teams Championships. Taking a look here back onto the standard format for the last stop. 10 minutes of free practice, of which we're in the middle of at the moment. 20 minutes of qualifying to follow on from that. And 60 minutes of racing, as always, with one mandatory pit stop for fuel at a fixed refueling time of 25 seconds. Looking at the Rookies Championship, William Bergeron. Now, this is something we failed to pick up on in Laguna Seca. He has now wrapped things up himself for the Rookies Championship. He has now become the first ever Rookies Champion in the history of the NLRL Sunday League, and the first ever, the first Canadian champion of any division since Christian LeBay in Season 1. He's ahead of Zolt Beefgarner in second, Sam Angel third, Alan Alexander in a joint fourth with Josh Wellbelove. With 167 points apiece there. Stefan Nikolai 6th, JM Keto 7th, Taylor Wolford in 8th, Spencer Brown 9th, and Brooklyn Donkin in 10th place. Taking a look into the teams championships, things could definitely shift because of that points reduction for Cas van Velsen, a driver of the Euro Titans endurance team. That could knock them even farther down from what is currently a 37-point gap between themselves and Velocity Racing Team. Now, I want to go on to point this out. If Velocity manages to take the teams championship here in Season 4, I think that stands a lot more as a precedent to the kind of driver they have on board, such as Melvin Milliston, because he has done that by his lonesome with no assistance, not even once in this season. That is a remarkable statistic to look at head on. Malwa Racing, last season's team's champions, could be then, under these specific circumstances, shifting up to second. We'll see confirmation of that on SimGrid after today's event, so sadly not one that we can cover live on air. 5-Star Esports, 4th place. VEC Esports in 5th. Fatch GT up to 6th, ahead of Holkianos, now down to 7th. Nexus GT in 8th, and WWA Mets Sim Racing into the 9th position on the field with 4 points. And that's Mikhail Krasnik's team with Ferrari. Taking a look back on track, then we're still in the midst of free practice on board with Levi Warner, who joined the ranks of the winning drivers over the course of Laguna Seca last weekend. Of course, won race 1 of 2 in a boiling hot Laguna Seca, I should mind you. One of the hottest races on record at joint ties there with, I believe it was one of the runs we had in Valencia that was that hot, in and around 50 to 52 degrees Celsius on track surface temperature alone. The second race would give us Melvin Milliston's 15th career win. Now, looking at the overall statistic of race winners over the course of the last 4 seasons, you can see joining the ranks of that as its 14th new name is Levi Warner. There you can see 15 race wins right at the very top of the charts for Melvin Milliston. Wesley Kuiper, Jason Bush and Tyler Vermack still in armistice for that second place spot. Van Velzen, even though technically third by association in the overall standings there, finds himself 5th. We are getting word as well from race control, just to have a look through these statistics as well. They're not 100% certain that the penalty adheres to Van Velzen for swapping the car. Now, to remind you of the regulations, if you do swap a car here in the NLRL Sunday League, you do have to take half of your points away. It is a sizable penalty to keep drivers from jumping around from manufacturer to manufacturer. It's sort of a, you need to commit to your one post here, otherwise you will suffer. Ultimately, Van Velzen deciding that no championship to be fought for this time around. He's going to start experimenting with different vehicles, and we'll see how he does with Lamborghini in a moment's time. He's obviously had his points halved. What we were showing you there were the pre-penalty points adherences. And I think it only affects personal standings. Look, it's a whole bit of regulatory jargon that's not our field to operate in. We've been given what we've been given, and ultimately we've had a few mistakes here and there. Look, it's been a fantastic season so far, and in the grand scheme it doesn't affect Van Velzen all too much whether or not he's third or whether or not he isn't, because he was hunting down a championship from the word go. It doesn't seem to have subtracted from ETE, so Euro Titans will be fine as far as you or I are concerned right now. But they still need to make up 37 points to best Velocity Racing in the team's championship. Now, it all rides on the line here. They've got a whole armada, whereas when you take a look over towards how many drivers that Velocity has, it's a one-man army. And seemingly that's been enough. In the case of Melvin Milliston, he has dominated this championship. Just to bring back up those previous wins, taking a look there, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times this season. That might actually be me double counting. Actually, not double counting there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, 8 times this season. So that is just absolutely mind-boggling when you take a look through that. The kind of dominance that he's brought to the table. Of course, it's been, I think, a joint record there for the longest run of consecutive race wins. 4 race wins he had in a row there, from Belgium all the way to our last visit to Great Britain at round 7 of the championship, and then that was interrupted the round thereafter in Kyle Army by Alan Alexander. That puts him at joint first for the longest amount of race wins back-to-back with Jason Bush, who managed to do the very same towards the latter end of Season 2 in his time with Lexus. We come towards the end then of free practice. A lot to break down coming up, including balance of performance and the qualifying predictions. Now, they are sparse compared to the grid we have today. 23 cars, and we only had 8 of them to record data-wise. So this is going to make for an interesting one. We see Alan Alexander, one of the drivers we just spoke about earlier, making his way down toward the line. Out of Brooklands into Luffield, following on his trails, the number 13 of Dan Junior Poulon with Malwar Racing. The question therein remains, so we were told as well that at least by a few drivers on this grid, as we see qualifying has now started, 20 minutes of qualifying underway. Let's catch on board with some of the drivers making their way out on track, as we can see a whole flurry of machinery out there up towards the front lines. But let's take a look with who exactly is leading the charge. Well, that comes as very little surprise. It's the number 1 of Melvin Milliston. What do we really do here when it comes to two-time champions in this sport? I mean, he's got the number 1 out of Season 3. How do we really rack this one up? Would we give him another number 1? Does he become number 11 for the next season? I don't think that's necessarily how it works. But on board with Melvin Milliston, let's break down a few of the data sets coming into this qualifying session, 19.5 minutes before the end of qualifying today. First, of course, balance of performance. Aston Martin on their final foray here after 42 races under their belt, the 43rd coming up today here in the Sunday League. 40 kilos off of the V12 Vantage. Lexus very close second to them, 37 kilos off of the RCF. That'll be fantastic news for Sam Angel and Zolt Beefgartner, 2 of the prime users there for the RCF in this championship. The Mercedes AMG GT3 losing 2 kilos in this race, and that isn't really all that useful news now for Cas van Velzen since his move over to Lamborghini. In fact, it would have been news he'd like to hear, considering Lamborghini have 10 kilos on board, so less than ideal stuff. And much like how it's been for Tyler Vermack when he moved over towards Lamborghini, he has come at a worst possible time, balance of performance-wise, over to the quarters of Lamborghini. Looking in the charts then, still Honda gaining 3 kilos, Ford gaining 7. It is a bizarre sight still to see, and it's been a routine thing whenever we come to Silverstone here that Ford finds themselves towards the middle of the ground, not on the short end of the stick. And they find themselves only 7 kilos on board. Porsche and Lamborghini, 10 kilos on. BMW with 14 kilos. McLaren with 17 kilos. That's not going to be great news here for two-time champion Melvin Milliston or many other drivers to be using the 720S in today's race. And Ferrari definitely aren't going to be grinning ear to ear with 19 kilos on board of that 296. It's going to be quite a heavy one for today's race. Looking into the qualifying predictions, sparse as it may seem, we did have a bit of a look as to what the front row could look like, and it shows LeBay up towards the front lines here. Could it be on his final race with that Aston Martin? Lucky number 43 then. Could it be a race win coming up for LeBay? We would sure hope so in his final bout with Aston Martin before the ambitious new Jaguar era. Brooklyn Donkin predicted at second, with Cheeseman third, Wolford fourth, Jenkins fifth, Belder sixth, Sanchez seventh, and Romano in eighth. However, when you can see a grid of this magnitude, it's gone up from 23 now to 25 drivers in the final round of Season 4. There are a lot of data gaps to be filled over the course of qualifying today. We're on board with the newly crowned two-time champion Melvin Milliston in the number 1. We'll have to get that second star on board for Season 5. That is going to be such an interesting look for the number 1. One does wonder as well, will he stay on with McLaren? Now, we've seen Milliston to joint venture with manufacturers before. In fact, it was a very cheeky use of the regulations back in Season 3 when we still had a free car swap. Milliston used this to great effect by moving over to a car he's also very apt with, and that's the BMW M4. That was what gave him the first 2 of his career race wins in Season 1 and Season 2 at the Red Bull Ring and the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. The NLRL lap record here at Silverstone was set as well by Melvin Milliston, a 157.647, so I'm told there by some of our analysts, and that is just mind-boggling stuff here from the number 1. It's very hard to go into this without sounding like we're blowing hot air, but really, how else does one describe a dominant drive like this? It is unlike anything we've ever seen. We thought that maybe eras of dominance like what we saw out of Season 2 in the latter half of Season 2 with the Rocket Man and the Lexus, Jason Bush, Lord only knows we could ever hope to see something even strikingly faster. And that has been that McLaren. I simply do not understand how he's been able to eke so much power out of that 720S where others before him have failed. Millicent is just so laser precise in this championship. He's not wasted any time. He has not pulled any punches. He has not cut any corners. Well, save for maybe a handful over the course of the season, but who hasn't? It has been an unmistakable season for this one, and he currently finds himself fastest at 158.295. Looking on to the timing charts, you can see already a whole swarm of times onto the charts there. Closest to him, Levi Warner, who took a race win in Laguna Seca last weekend, only off him by 85 thousandths of a second. William Bajor, the newly crowned VEC Esports Rookies Champion. So that is going to be quite something. You see brand new gold livery there on the 333, relishing in his victories. Sadly, we failed to pick up one in Laguna Seca, but all the power to him. He is now your first ever Rookies Champion. And it was a brutal, brutal performance throughout this season. He has definitely deserved that one. He has put on a phenomenal show. It's going to be so, so exciting to see him and so many other drivers, for that matter, in this Rookies wing up in the official pro standings for Season 5. I just cannot wait to see what Season 5 will bring, because with grids like these and the majority of these drivers brought into the same category, mark my words, it will be war. It would be racing unlike anything we have ever seen here on the NLRL Sunday League. Now, I was glancing down memory lane during the run into the season finale with a couple colleagues of mine, looking back towards Season 3 and Season 2, looking back through the history of the Sunday League. And really, it was a case where Season 4 has been a very, very solid trailing act to Season 3. Season 3 gave us one of the closest fights to the championship we had seen in some time since Season 1, which came all the way down to the line in round 8. 6 points between the leading pair. That was Labay and Abate. See, Levi Warner across the line, now up over Milliston by 15 thousandths of a second. Milliston currently on his way down through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. William Bajor now closes in on Warner by 92 thousandths of a second away. So the top three divided by less than a tenth of a second. If we had to expect this for 10 or so rounds next season in Season 5, we are in for such a treat. And I tell you that much for free there, out through to Season 5, up through what is going to be Q1, Q2, 2026 at this point. Coming down towards the line, we're just going to quickly see here with the 999, and that is Carl Martel coming to the line 16th. Let's just quickly catch on board here, because we did mention it earlier on. We'll get back into the discussion of how far we've come here in the Sunday League in a little while's time. We will all go down a little bit of memory lane together. Having a look on board with this one here, Cas van Velzen. Now, we've seen him with many different manufacturers over the last couple of seasons. Some of the most notable performances to have come out of the last 2 seasons was with Porsche and Mercedes. This move to Lamborghini, we saw it played in force by Tyler Vermaak towards the end of this season, and it's been a bit haphazard, I'd say, is the best one to put on a table. But not in the worst of ways. He has obviously been experimenting. Has he got all of the results that he's looking for? And in the case of Van Velzen, will he be finding himself afflicted by the same sort of curse here? Lamborghini has been a very bizarre manufacturer in this championship. It has had sort of on and off results every time it has come out to compete here in the Sunday League. It is going to be curious to see how things go here with a driver like Van Velzen at the helm. And while this seems to, and to give a clarification of points made earlier on, while it seems to have affected his own personal standings, it does not seem to have affected that of Euro Titans Endurance. So they still have a 37-point gap between themselves and their rivals over at the Velocity Racing team. Speaking of, Melvin Milliston retakes the fastest time, 157.682, up by just shy of 6 tenths of a second to Levi Warner in second place. William Bajor still very, very close indeed. It makes a Ford 2-3 between Fatch GT and VEC Esports. Their last time these two will spend as rookies by looks of it here. You see in the chat at the moment, that is a name I have not seen in quite some time there. That's Sealander Has. Well, good evening to you, sir. It's been a long, long time since you've been in our Twitch chat. Hopefully you're just as excited for the final round of the Sunday League as we are. That has been some time. Has been definitely some time. Finds now currently 4 cars separated front to back by less than a second there. Spencer Brown marking the back of that row, 740 thousandths of a second. He currently finds himself only half a tenth away from Bajor. That could make a Fatch GT 2-3 if he can really knuckle down. Milliston, 35 thousandths of a second off of his personal best. Just to reiterate, the NLRL lap record here in Silverstone was set by Milliston at 157.647. Currently, he's at 157.682. Coming to the line, next up is Zolt Beefgartner with Lexus. Bear in mind, considerable reduction in weight, and you can see it playing out in front of our eyes here. He finds himself up to 10th place, and behind a brand new driver to this field. Now, I feel like this one has sort of snuck under the radar for the majority of this broadcast, but now we get to make formalities with this one. This is according to SimGrid. This is Gio Boris, the number 67 Porsche with the MSR team. And mind you, as well, in terms of the history of the Sunday League, the first ever driver to compete from the Sunday League for the flag of Serbia. And he competes right there in a strikingly similar car. Now, we were talking earlier about memory lane, and those of you may remember the very infamous era towards the end of Season 3. Cas van Veltzen drove for Porsche with that same livery, the Manthey EMA, bright green colours there. Gio Boris across the line for 5th place. This could be an exciting one. Do not count out the new ones to the grid. It is going to be curious to see what he can do here. This is his first ever race in the Sunday League. And he is not disappointed so far. 5th place so far, and makes a Porsche 5-6, all Porsche 3rd row by looks of it there, between himself and Alan Alexander, who won out in Kyle Army earlier this season. First British winner since Ian Skeen 2 seasons ago with Aston Martin in Bathurst. The first ever driver to win for Porsche. George Todd now 3rd place for 5-Star Esports. 317 coming to the line. So next to the line here, Ben Meredith. Evidently, the dog's very excited for the race as well. But Ben Meredith across the line there, 13th fastest as he crosses the line. The number 119, Christian Lebay, to the line from 9th place on the field. Couldn't find an improvement over that last lap. Finds himself stuck in behind 2 Euro Titans cars there, that being Alan Alexander and Brooklyn Donkin, 7th and 8th. 8 minutes left to go then here in qualifying. Next to the line on what appears to be a valid lap, we'll be catching on board with the number 69 of Levi Warner. It was such a close fight we saw in Laguna Seca. The closest finish to the checkered flag we've seen in Sunday League history was the fight right down to the wire between him and Melvin Milliston at race 1 of 2 last weekend. And it was truly something to behold here. Fatch GT's first ever Sunday League win came from this man here, Levi Warner in the number 69. He's across the line. 7.5 minutes left to go here in qualifying. He finds himself just over half a second away from Melvin Milliston. George Todd now nipping at his heels from 3rd. You can see the gap between those two is starting to close down here, about 35 thousandths of a second in and around that mark there. We see making their way up into the top 5 there, William Bajor. We'll see what the rebuttal is from Spencer Brown. 2nd fastest there, up and ahead of his own teammate. Levi Warner now pushed down to 3rd. Spencer Brown takes the helm up by 0.04 of a second. Heading down towards Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. That has been some serious grit for these two. Milliston has not pumped the brakes whatsoever. He's already taken the championship. As a matter of fact, we can even make that argument as far back as last weekend. He already took the championship after race 1, despite finishing behind Levi Warner. It did absolutely zero to affect his chances of taking home his 2nd Sunday League championship in a row. And he went on the race thereafter to take his 15th career win, still raising the bar for what is expected to break records here in the Sunday League. And dare I say it, the form that he's carrying today could propel him to a 16th. We'll not hold our breath to that, as everything can and still happens here in the Sunday League. These races have proven, at least over the course of Season 4, to be some of the most chaotic we've seen since the advent of Season 3. That was a real Wild West time to be on the Sunday League grid. With the introduction of the Rookies Championship, it has kept retention at a very high rate here. We've had grids routinely well over 20 to 25 drivers every single weekend. It's been one of the most popular seasons of the Sunday League, with plenty more big label names in the local community stepping in to pitch drivers into the championship battle. Velocity Racing Team, of course, have had Melvin Milliston as their ace in the hole for as far back as Season 1 in his time with BMW. Fatch GT made their entry earlier on this season with Spencer Brown and Levi Warner. 5-Star Esports, formerly K1, have had their drivers in and around the grid for the last 4 seasons. Euro Titan stepped in over the course of this season, though they had Cas van Veltzen, a driver who does race with them over several events, racing in the Sunday League for some time. The list really does go on, and it expands out even farther the more you look. We even had some rounds of the Sunday League hit upwards to 35 drivers this season. I mean, it's just jarring. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. Thinking about where things came from all the way back in Season 1 when we were taking up the helm off of the GHR Sunday League, when the NLRL Sunday League became its own thing. There weren't really many expectations for it to become the monolith that it is now of the weekend calendar. I mean, it is such an honor here for us at TRTN to be the sole sort of broadcaster of this series. We would not skip the opportunity for the world. It has been such a wild ride, and Season 5 is looking to be even wilder, with the current precedent laid in stone here over the course of Season 4. Milliston back out on track. We'll take a look, though, to the 119's point of view as we cut across here hesitantly towards the Aston Martin. Currently 10th on the field, to the line, on an improvement, mind you, across the line of 159.882. And sadly was not enough to put him up an extra position. Telemetry showed green all the way into the final post there. Sadly, that was not an improvement over his personal best. LeBay still finds himself towards the back of the top 10. Heading on to his 43rd race with Aston Martin, and it seems to be his last with Aston. It's going to be exciting to see what he can do then. The Season 1 champion of the Sunday League, Christian LeBay, as he makes his way over towards Jaguar for Season 5. And so we've been told as well by sources, and from what we've been able to see firsthand in his time over the Jaguar GT3 Revival Series over on Competizione Performance League. You can also find that available on the TRTN YouTube channel, in full, mind you, as well. What we found out of that time, he can be upwards of a second faster on some circuits compared to the times he's put in over the last 4 seasons with Aston Martin. That is a dangerous leap in terms of times, because that second, at least what we've been able to see on the Sunday League grid, can decide pole. So if LeBay is making this move in all seriousness to put himself in even a slightly more competitive car, the majority of the drivers up over his nose right now should be taking this as a serious warning for Season 5, because he will be hunting down his second championship with Jaguar. Of course, all will be revealed in due course when we get to that first round of the season somewhere down the line. Of course, do stay on with us towards the end of this round, as we'll be getting back on to a honoured tradition now brought in over the course of last season to reveal the calendar. We're bringing back the wheel. We're going to be spinning the wheel 10 times to give you the look of Season 5's calendar. It's going to be interesting to see where that gives us. It gave us a brilliant calendar this season. Let's see what it can do next time around. We see leaping to the pit lane, 2.5 minutes left to go in qualifying. LeBay is in, looking to stay in 10th place. Looking back out onto the timing charts as we speak here, Milliston from Brown, Warner, Todd and Bajor, your top 5. We see George Todd to the line from 4th place. Bear in mind, he only needs, by looks of it there, 35 thousandths over Levi Warner to start on the front of that second row, and then really not too far a shout away from Spencer Brown's position to be putting himself on the front row of this race. 2 minutes to follow. Nearest to the line then, the 333 and the 599. Let's catch on board William Bajor and Zolt Beefgartner. And the exit of Luffield, a bit of an upset there for the 333 on his way to the line. Rookies champion, soon to join the ranks of Pro. He's across the line, stays out on track, in for one more flying lap. Then the 599 on his trails. We'll see. Whereabouts did the 599 place on the charts there? 12th fastest for Zolt Beefgartner. So a minute left to go. There is still that fated story up in that top four, namely between second, third and fourth here, front to back divided by 70, looking at here, 75 thousandths of a second, 3/4 of a tenth of a second. Wrap your head around logic like that, because that is truly bizarre metrics. It takes about 110 thousandths of a second for you to blink. And I think Zombie Gartner thinks he's at the different layout for Silverstone. He's just trying to make his way there in towards the wing. No, sadly, we're competing out of the Nationals paddock, not on the Hamilton straight where the Grand Prix would normally start from. Of course, the Nationals paddock, sometimes also called the Old Pit Lane, was named for that reason because it is very much so the original pit lane for when Silverstone was founded back in 1948. It held the first ever Formula One race, the 1950 British Grand Prix. That was won by Giuseppe Farina with Alfa Romeo. The rest has been history. Well, the 119 will be beaten by the clock here. LeBay down towards the line. He's into the pit lane. And the 719 coming to the line. That'll be Sam Angel. Making a return after quite a long-winded hiatus there. Missed out on his chances of the Rookies Championship because of it. He's back on the grid, but 21st at the end of quali. The 317 coming to the line will be next on board with Ben Meredith. Currently 15th on the grid. Following in his trails is the number 114. That'll be Ben Cheeseman, currently 11th. And behind them, the 616 Andrew Veldkamp, the number 113 of Kyle Jenkins, the number 1 of Melvin Milliston, and the number 17 of Brooklyn Donkin. Meredith to the line, 14th at the end of qualifying. The 114 coming to the line. Here's Ben Cheeseman. Brand new livery, mind you, as well for Cheeseman there. Bright, what would you say that was? What, magenta, fuchsia? It's a specific shade of pink, but it's pink nonetheless. 11th for Cheeseman at the end of qualifying today. The 113 across the line and takes 15th place there, Kyle Jenkins. The number 1 has already set the precedent here, but he's been hunting down the lap record here in Silverstone. And it's Melvin Milliston to the line, already on pole position. Bear in mind, time to beat at this time. 157.647. Can he do it to the line? Yes, he can. A 157.520. A new lap record for Melvin Milliston to cap off qualifying at the end of the season. How on earth has he done that? Unbelievable. He's cleared the bar of the fastest time set here at Silverstone, according to our records given here, by having just a quick guess of the maths, 127 thousandths of a second. Oh my goodness. Well, that is a dangerous, dangerous sign indeed for Milliston. If you thought he was pumping the brakes, you thought he was going to be playing things safe here. He's already got the championship under his belt, his second in a row, mind you. And already 15 race wins. No, think again. Now he's got the lap record at Silverstone, so this is a death sentence for whoever finds themselves alongside him down at turn 1 at Copse. And that is going to be quite a sizable grid to get into then. Apologies to some drivers if we've not been able to get around to absolutely everyone on the grid. Such a stacked grid for the end of Season 4. What a glorious sight it's going to be then running in towards lap 1. Some of the closest gaps you can see there. Meredith from Jenkins, 7 thousandths of a second we're seeing there. We also see Boris from Donkin, 2 thousandths of a second. That is incredibly close. And so, before we get on to the topic of the grid, we do have 2 articles of news to discuss. First of which comes out of the World Rally Raid Championship. Dacia and Nasser Al Attiyah win in the Dakar Rally 2026. It's Al Attiyah's 6th Dakar win and his first win for his co-driver Fabien Lecam. Despite the 2 only claiming 2-stage wins of 13 stages total in this year's Dakar Rally, constant good form and consistency kept the Sand Riders team at the forefront of this year's Dakar. Ford's Nani Roma and Matthias Ekstrom made up the remainder of the Ultimates podium. It was a fantastic running of the Dakar Rally this year. Dacia ought to be very, very proud of that one. Their 2nd year in the World Rally Raid Championship, and the Sand Rider finally victorious at its paramount event. Taking a look into the second article of news today comes from the World Rally Championship as opposed to the World Rally Raid Championship, and that comes out from Hyundai. They reveal their 2026 livery, and they were among the last to do so. We saw from Toyota, we saw especially the brand new Red Bull special livery for Seb Ogier on the hunt down of his record-breaking championship fight after equalising the all-time record with Seb Loeb. But now we get to see what Hyundai's been cooking up. And it's definitely got some strong competition from Ford and Toyota, I will say that to be precise. But it's not a terrible livery, all things considered. It's definitely a bit of a crowd splitter. It's got quite a mixed reaction. Very odd-looking car this year, with all hopes that Hyundai can be just as competitive as they were during the time of Thierry Neuville's charge to the championship a few seasons ago. Let's see how things pan out, though, in that championship later down the line. They're set to make their way to the Monte Carlo Rally not too long from now. And on top of that, we'll also be seeing the debut of John Armstrong to Rally 1 and the debut of Lancia to Rally 2. That's going to be an exciting one. But let's get on to the final grid of Season 4 of the Sunday League, and what a grid it is. Up at the front row, then, Melvin Milliston, your 2-time champion and 15-time race winner in the Sunday League, leads the charge on a brand new lap record here at Silverstone. Alongside him is George Todd with 5-star Esports, Spencer Brown third, and Levi Warner fourth to make an all-Fats GT second row. William Bajor, your rookies champion for Season 4, in 5th place ahead of Alan Alexander in 6th. And 7th place behind him there, you find Cas van Velzen on his maiden drive with Lamborghini. Gioet Boris in 8th place ahead of Brooklyn Donkin in 9th, with Christian Lebay to round out the top 10. Ben Cheeseman in 11th with Dan Junior Poulin in 12th place. Zolt Beefgartner in 13th with Ben Meredith in 14th. Kyle Jenkins in 15th, and Ethan Ring in 16th for VEC Esports in the 992 Porsche. Carl Martel in 17th and Josh Wellbeloved in 18th. Taylor Wolford 19th with Mikhail Krasnik in 20th. Sam Angel 21st. Sergio Belda in 22nd. Ivan Sanchez 23rd. Thomas Romano 24th. And to round out this 25-car grid, the 616 of Andrew Veldkamp. This is going to be a race of monolithic proportions here. Despite the precedent of the championship being far and away cleared on both sides, this has proven to be one of the most invigorating qualifying sessions we've seen in a good while here on the Sunday League. And we got our final confirmations through as well. We did try to contact last week your 2-time champion of the Sunday League, Melvin Milliston. We got word from him today that he won't be available for a chat after today's race. Neither will that of William Bajor. So sadly, we won't be hearing from any of our champions this time around. That will give us the opportunity to make our way onto the Season 5 calendar reveal with immediate effect after today's race. So do look forward to that one. But before we get to that point, it's 60 minutes of racing to follow. To remind you of the session itinerary one last time, before we get into the runnings of things here in Silverstone for the last stop of Season 4, one mandatory pit stop for fuel at a fixed refueling time of 25 seconds. 60 minutes of racing to follow after what was an exhilarating 20 minutes of qualifying here at the home of British Motor Racing. Getting on board then with Milliston and Todd, your front row, and this is going to prove to be a brutal grid for the final stop of Season 4. On a track that is much fairer in condition to what we have seen in the last couple of weeks. Pouring rain in Kyalami, blistering heat in Laguna Seca. I think we've hit the Goldilocks zone here in Northamptonshire. So we wait to see the take-up from the line here, getting away from pole position. Melvin Milliston starting the formation lap. Then following on his trail is that number 12 of George Todd, 5-star Esports, right alongside at the front row. It has been quite a bizarre sign to see Silverstone in such dry and fair conditions. Of course, our last stop here on NLRL at Silverstone was back in the Console Endurance Series. I'm sure many drivers have some rather traumatic memories of just how torrential the conditions were at play during the 6 hours of Silverstone. I mean, to pick up on some drivers specifically that might remember quite a thing or two about Silverstone was this one in particular. Alan Alexander and his teammate Ben Meredith, they find themselves in separate Porsches. You can see there, the one at the foreground in the center of our cameras there was Alexander. The one in the background was Meredith. These two led the charge for so long. It was a glitch in the pit lane that sadly took them out of that fight, but it was such a heroic drive from the duo at Euro Titans during the 6 hours of Silverstone. And it was traded between 3 different teams over the course of that race. It did give us one of the most exciting races of the season. It was really a no man's land as to who could lead in Silverstone back during that time. Was it up in the air between Exclusive, between 5-star, between Euro Titans? It definitely presented that. And at the end of the day, it was the 788 to take victory once again. But Lord knows, between the start and finish, no one could have called it. Will we see much of the same here, condensed down to but a single hour, a sixth of the size of the race we saw in the Console Endurance Series, which is set to pick back up next weekend for the 3 hours of Imola. That'll be on Saturday at 6 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. Do look forward to that one. We'll be catching back on board with the folks of the Console Endurance Series to bring us into the final couple of rounds of Season 2's Championship. Making our way down through Vale and Club Corner, of course, what would normally be the final corners of the British Grand Prix here at Silverstone, we'll see will only be part of the bridging section in towards sectors 2 and 3. As we make our way down the Hamilton Straight. Those grandstands to the left-hand side are long gone, or at least in some capacity long gone, replaced now by the very large and opulent Hilton Hotel that's been erected now at Silverstone right opposite from the wing. Creates almost a tunnel effect now down the Hamilton Straight for those who have been to Silverstone very recently. Down towards Village in the Loop. This has been a controversial section of the track, of course, was the deciding factor in the title fight in Season 3 between Tyler Vermaak and not Cas van Velzen, sorry, and Melvin Milliston. It was a resulting incident between these two that ultimately, under penalties, gave Cas van Velzen the race win in one of the 2 races round at the double sprint at Silverstone, but ultimately the championship would drop into Melvin Milliston's hands. This has been a broadly different story through Season 4. He wasn't looking for any kind of race control rulings this time around. He was going to be taking this one by force, by the scruff. Absolutely no fear whatsoever. Let's see what this grid can do on the final run in what has been a landslide season for this one in particular, with 24 cars to line up at his heels for this race. Actually could be yes, no, it is 24 cars, in fact. This time, remarkably, none from the pit lane. That is quite a relief here. All's well that ends well here in the not the Console Endurance Series, the NLRL Sunday League. Getting ahead of myself. Already getting ready for the next weekend of broadcasting. Busy, busy times here on TRTN. Nonetheless, 25 cars in all for the final race of Season 4 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by Malwa Transport and live exclusively on TRTN. Making our way through Woodcote Corner, an hour against the clock here in Silverstone. Heading down towards the line then. 15 race wins. Could it be 16 today? 60 minutes will tell us apart. Down towards the line at the home of the British Grand Prix. From the front of the field, Melvin Milliston is green and racing. So too does follow the rest of the grid. And so it begins down towards turn 1. Could it be madness here at Silverstone with a great getaway right off the bat there? Milliston leads the charge. Todd right on his heels. The 2 Fatch GT cars spread out there as intercepting, and now putting himself in between the pair goes William Bajor of VEC Esports. That Ford off to a raring start indeed. Out through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, then a great start from the number 1. You can see the rest of the field starting to pile up just a little bit here down through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. It can get quite hairy, and the yellow flags are out. There you can see in the background, that's the Honda of Thomas Romano. You can see properly spread out now. How does one make sense of a scene like this? It looks like something out of NASCAR. The amount of cars side by side down towards Stowe. Cannot make head nor tail from it. We've been watching here with Kyle Jenkins' point of view as he is properly surrounded on all sides there by racing machines. Down towards Vale and Club Corner. Mikhail Krasnik up in front of him, just behind him there, the 719 of Sam Angel. And it is absolute bedlam down through Vale and Club Corner. On the way down the Hamilton Straight, you can see farther up the order, that top 5 getting away. And you can see being intercepted at the moment. That is the 315 being chased down by the 119. Christian LeBay looking to fight with Alan Alexander. Up the road, you can see a fight going on currently for 5th place. Spencer Brown versus Cas van Velzen. That's now 3's, now 4's company in contention of 5th. Let's stay on board with the Porsche then. Your race winner from the last couple of rounds in Kyle Lamy. Let's stay on board with Alan Alexander. Currently in that fight of 6th place. Is going to be by proxy for 5th not long from now. But he's looking to go toe-to-toe with Cas van Velzen on his maiden drive for Lamborghini. We see a little bit of a hairy run in through Luffield for the first time there for William Bajor. Had to take a bit of a wider line. That's opened up a gap between himself and Spencer Brown, potentially for a fight up the road there for 4th place. Alan Alexander under acceleration cannot find the same kind of pull that the Lamborghini has, and it's the same story out back of him there because the Aston Martin of Christian LeBay is gaining ground. So he may find himself falling back into a fight of 7th place in a moment's time. Meanwhile, up the order, we are starting to see the proceedings for a fight going on for 4th place. Meanwhile, Milliston is just breaking away from the rest of the pack here. George Todd is actually starting to fall back in towards the looks here of Levi Warner. Actually do start to see that up the order there. Let's get a look on board as we also see an incident here. Taylor Wolford rejoins down the hangar straight into a swarm of cars here. You can see right up in front of him, absolute bedlam in towards Stowe. This is a disaster waiting to happen with so much traffic piling in towards Stowe Corner, then down towards Vale and Club. Super close between himself there and the number 54. That's Josh Welbelove with Nexus GT. Super close on the exit of Club. But we want to get a look with the fight that was going on up in front. George Todd side by side down through Stowe earlier on with Levi Warner. This is in the fight for 2nd place. We'll stay on board with the defending point of view here. In with Todd, currently in the fight of 2nd. Do just excuse us one moment. Still on board here with George Todd. You can see the fight going on behind him, though. It's starting to ramp up once again. That's the fight between William Bajor and Spencer Brown. Now, Bajor had a great start to this race, intercepting the pair of Thatch GT cars over his nose, has split the pack down the middle to put himself currently in 4th place. With Todd, though, there's a lot of pressure mounting from behind here. 2 Ford Mustangs. They know they've got the chances to outgun the Ferrari on the straights, and they're in no shortage of them coming up out of Chapel Corner here onto the hangar straight. Milliston up over his nose by a 1.5 seconds in just under 5 minutes of racing here at Silverstone. In towards Stowe Corner. You got to hand it to Ford. The engineering on the table here. You'd be surprised how much poke the Mustang has in the corners, despite being front engine. You'd think by simple nature of physics that the Ferrari would just constantly have that leverage over the Mustang every single corner. But in terms of the way the cars have been set up, those Fords are not really too shy in the corners compared to the 296. Meanwhile, we got word of a yellow flag, then to a DNF. That's the number 19 of Thomas Romano with Honda now out of this race. In towards Village in the loop, you can see sizing up his chances to attack onto that front row. Levi Warner is looking very, very likely to strike in the near future here on George Todd. Looking further down the line, Mikhail Krasnik fighting a war on 2 fronts here. The number 4 being intercepted by Sam Angel and Zolt Beefgartner. 2 Lexus RCFs right on the tail of that Ferrari as they make their way in towards Aintree. Now we see Spencer Brown in his fight with William Bajor out back. You can see a potential fight to be still going on at this time. LeBay v Alexander. I was speaking more in the terms of Van Veltzen v Alexander. You can see the gap is still much closer in the favour of these two. Taking a look even further behind to this, I believe this fight going on here. The number 67, Gioet Boris. New driver on the grid, fighting with Brooklyn Donkin on your screens at the moment in the number 17 Euro Titans Ford. In towards Cops we go. In the last lap was faster than Boris, but by 0.3 of a second, the Porsche's got leverage in the braking zones. It can stick itself in the slipstream, and as we saw through Season 3, when used by Cas Van Veltzen, the Porsche can make up for its lack of straight line speed in every other department when used correctly. In towards Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Does this new driver, Gioet Boris, have the opportunity to attack? Down through the hangar straight. You can see a fight going a little further down the order here. We'll actually have a look just briefly up through the order to see what is the current situation in LeBay v Alexander. That's for the fight of 7th place. We see what is currently the fight of 3rd place, Bajor v Warner. A fight amongst the Fords here for third place. VEC Esports versus Fatch GT. Now, to take a look onto the wider scale of the grid as we're coming up on the first 10 minutes of racing, we can see quite a varied grid indeed. Fight of 9th place was what we were watching on with earlier on. We do take a look a little further down the line to see some of the other fights that were going on. I think what we saw in the background was this fight here. Sam Angel still intercepting Mikhail Krasnik. Lexus versus Ferrari, and you can see up in front, that's Ethan Ring, new driver for VEC Esports, makes his debut here in Silverstone. He's not had too bad a shout of things, up in the top 15 right now, and not far off a shout. 2.07 seconds, I should say, from Ben Cheeseman to being within a shot of 13th place. We'll get a look at the sort of full run of the grid in a moment's time, but you can see here one of the closest fights going on. Once again, the fight of 4th place, Spencer Brown versus William Bajor. New fastest lap there comes from Melvin Milliston leading this charge. 2.7 seconds now down the road from him is George Todd. And the last interval we observed was 1.5 seconds. So he has really opened the taps up here. And so too, after the exit of Cops, has that been for Spencer Brown. Side by side with Bajor. It's contact through Beckett in towards Chapel. Out through Chapel now we go, on towards the hangar straight. The Mustang's going to have the run over the Ferrari on the exit of Chapel. You can see the Lamborghini and the Porsche not far off a shout of being within this fight themselves. And Bajor looking at immediate comeback here from around the outside in towards Stowe Corner. Where can he plant it? The 93 still on the inside. It's Brown v Bajor in through Stowe Corner. The Ferrari holds it and cuts off any advance from the outside, as it would give him the inside for the run into Vale and Club. An elbows out approach there by Spencer Brown, but one that has netted him 4th place, has reunited him with Levi Warner, his teammate at Fatch GT, for an all-Fatch second row. Speaking of Levi Warner, he's getting closer and closer to his chances to fight here for the front row against George Todd of 5-Star Esports. Meanwhile, Melvin Milliston now, after the most recent interval of data, 3.2 seconds in the lead, up from 2.7 and then previously 1.5. In just under 10 minutes, he's opened up a gap north of 3 seconds. You see here, swerving by Todd, trying to cut some of the slipstream off of Levi Warner. You can see in the background, though, up the inside into Brooklands, goes William Bajor in the 333 VEC Esports Mustang. Can he take this one back up off of Spencer Brown? Now around the outside will be to a late apex through Luffield. Oh, it's contact again! How has that one gone on? Cas van Velzen has the opportunity of a lifetime. He's got one position. Now through Woodcote, trying to follow through. You can see in the background, Alan Alexander side by side with Spencer Brown. Cas van Velzen moves up into the top 5. Around the outside goes Alexander on Spencer Brown. Christian LeBay could get in on this action very, very shortly with Aston Martin in towards Maggots, Beckett and Chapel. Alan Alexander up a position then over the Ferrari. One tiny bout of contact created a cascade effect there inside of the top 10. We see now replacing his position in that fight. What was Spencer Brown is now Cas van Velzen. It was a bit of a slow burn for the start here for Van Velzen. We see side-by-side action a moment ago there for Spencer Brown, trying to cover off any kind of advance from the Aston Martin of Christian LeBay. This has immediately kicked off into absolute warfare inside of the top 10 just as we cross over the first 10 minutes of racing. Meanwhile, not too far away from this, Gioette Boris and Brooklyn Donkin. These two now having swapped positions. We also see having swapped positions as well. Ben Cheeseman up to 12th. Ben Meredith down to 13th. Now, bear in mind, one of the key points of that 315 and the 317 and the 67 and the 992 and the number 6, all of the Porsches for that matter, are their stopping power. We've said this many, many times before. We've seen it demonstrated throughout the history of the Sunday League as far back as Season 3, and it's time being used by the driver just up in front there, Cas van Velzen, now driving for Lamborghini. And this is something Van Velzen will be acutely aware of, fighting with not only a teammate of his at the Euro Titans team, a driver that he already understands, but also in a car he understands very, very well. He knows what to watch out for, he knows its strengths, and he knows its weaknesses, and he knows exactly how to counter it by having spent so much time last season with Porsche. So just whilst we've got an interlude between the major fights going on here, let's get a look at the grid so far as we're getting closer to the first quarter hour now, less so than the first 10 minutes. Melvin Milliston leads now by 4 seconds over George Todd in second, Levi Warner in third place, William Bajor in fourth, Cas van Veltzen in fifth, Alan Alexander in sixth with Spencer Brown right on his tail from seventh place, Christian LeBay following from eighth place, Gioet Boris in ninth, and Brooklyn Donkin around at the top 10. Dan Jr. Poulon in 11th place with Ben Cheeseman recently up into 12th. Almost at Brooklyn Donkin. Ben Meredith in 13th place, right behind him by 0.6 of a second as they make their way onto the Hangar Straight. Zolbeef Gardner in 14th place, up and ahead of Ethan Ring with VEC Esports right behind them. You can see Sam Angel as well as Kyle Jenkins and Mikhail Krasnik, 16th, 17th and 18th. Taylor Wolford in 19th. You can see following on Strauss there from 20th. That's Josh Wellbeloved with Nexus GT. Behind them, Sergio Belda with Holkiano, Sivan Sanchez 22nd and Andrew Veldkamp 23rd. In the pit lane comes Carl Martel from 24th on track. DNFs already from Thomas Romano. Close gap to monitor here. Alexander v. Brown, 6th place up for grabs. This could be an interesting one to see. Let's see if we can go and catch on board with these drivers here. On board with Spencer Brown in the attacking side of this fight. On board with the Ferrari. Out through Aintree corner we go. This is in the fight of 6th place. Let's stay on board with Spencer Brown. Bear in mind he's got ever so slight advantage in the straights over the Porsche in front of him there. Not by a great deal. This is not in the same kind of night and day difference one observes in a matchup with Ford or with BMW for that matter. It's a lot more fine when you go toe-to-toe with these two 6-cylinder machines, the flat 6 versus the V6 on the exit of Luffield in towards Woodcote. Coming out towards Copse corner in a moment's time, on towards lap 7 of this race. .2 seconds away from him is Christian LeBay. I would not rule LeBay out of this fight whatsoever, just as much as we couldn't rule out Cas van Veltzen earlier on in the fight up in front of them inside of that top 5. All it took was one mistake here to tip the scales and to set Spencer Brown down this path, but he looks to be on the road to redemption. He's now right in the rear bumper of that number 315. Closer and closer and closer, but can't attack just yet down towards Stowe. Trying to put a little bit of fear there into the 315. Trying to force him to compromise on his line out through Stowe corner. Can't find head or tail of it. Heading in towards Vale and Club corner. Stuck between a rock and a hard place to try and figure out his next course. See up in front, this could be getting active here. The fight going on for second place. We'll cut away from these two to go and catch on board with the leading, well, I must say leading fight. I suppose it is technically the leading fight here. It's the farthest up the order with Milliston so far away now, 6.8 seconds, whilst these two clash heads. And it's Levi Warner versus George Todd. Out through the loop and in towards Aintree. Let's stay on board here. The fight of second place. On board with the Ford here of Levi Warner. Last week's race winner in race 1 of 2 at Laguna Seca, hunting down second place off of George Todd in the number 12 5-star esports Ferrari. Down towards Brooklands we go. Into Luffield. You can see there it's just past the apex where the Ferrari has that tiny advantage over the Ford at this time. Now they've shoved that 5.4 litre quite far back behind the front axle to give the car as solid a center rotation as possible. But it's just not enough compared to the Ferrari. What he does lack then in maneuverability, he makes up for in straight line power. That much is definitely undisputed. And as we can see there, a whopper of a move for Levi Warner. Thread the eye of a needle. Absolutely diabolical. In through Chapel. On towards the Hangar Straight we go. Can he hold it? We know he has the straight line speed, but bear in mind, George Todd is not the kind of driver to go down easily. 0.1 of a second between the pair. Heading in towards Stowe corner. What is the number 12 thinking up right now? Could it be a late apex through Stowe? He's got no room to run on the left-hand side. Yes, he does, as it turns out. Down towards Vale and Club. Covering him off is Levi Warner. Back onto the racing line. Goes George Todd. They bash doors on the run in towards Vale and Club corner. William Bajor gets brought into this fight from 4th place. This is absolutely feral here in Silverstone, make no mistake of it. Just after the first quarter hour of racing, Melvin Milliston's off scot-free, 8.8 seconds up the road, eyeing up race win number 16. Still raising the bar for that all-time record. Meanwhile, Levi Warner, George Todd and William Bajor are ripping each other limb from screaming limb in through Aintree. Number 12 with a chance to fight back here. Levi Warner implementing much of the same strategy as before, used against him by that of George Todd, trying to swerve to cut off any momentum and slipstream from that Ferrari. Out through Luffield. Trouble for the 719. That's, I believe, Sam Angel. Yeah, yellow flags are out down through the loop. Trouble for Lexus's 719. Sam Angel in trouble before Aintree corner. That's cleared off into green flags for the time being. For these three, they've been isolated in their own little world here. Distant from the rest of the top 5. Distant from the rest of the top 10 for that matter. And distant from the race lead. Now up by nearly 10 seconds. It is just this... such a wide gap now. It is difficult to find the words that exist in the English vocabulary to really describe the breadth of that gap right now. I could give it a shot. 9.4 seconds. Out through Stowe. We'll just cut away from these three for but a moment to take a look around the field once again to see where some of the other fights may be coming from. You can see Melvin Milliston now on what is definitely a bit of a brisk Sunday drive for him. 9.5 seconds up the road in the lead of this race, away from the rest of the fighting behind him. We see here, this is Cas van Veltzen making the top 5 at the moment after a great split decision move there to put himself up into the top 5. He's up the road at the moment from Alan Alexander and Spencer Brown. That's another Threes Company battle at the moment. Almost playing perfect in terms of contrast to the fight right up in front of them. Warner v Todd v Bajor. And speaking of, I think we're about to see an advance here by Todd at this time. So let's catch on board. We're on with the Ferrari now of George Todd charging down the Wellington Straight. Of course, named after the Vickers Wellington that was housed at this very airbase, RAF Silverstone, back during the Second World War, before the airfield would be closed in 1945. In that last lap, Warner still fastest by 0.2 of a second at its nearest. That's between himself and George Todd. And it's the same story inverse there, 0.2 between Todd and Bajor. In spite of all of that, they stay religiously close to one another there, separated front to back by about 1.1 seconds. 39.5 minutes left to go here in Silverstone. You can see that battle from behind is starting to ramp up, namely in the talks here between Spencer Brown and Alan Alexander. Spencer Brown having been waylaid from the top 5 after an incident earlier on in today's race. Now looking to make his chances. In terms of Season 5 of the Sunday League, it's going to be a curious one. I think a lot of the ideas that have been experimented with so far have been working quite nicely, but so I'm told Race Control is looking into some new ideas that have worked in real life series before. They've not named what, they've left us in the dark here, and I actually am quite thankful for it because it's left a lot of air of suspense, a lot of mystery surrounding Season 5's calendar. Of course, we'll be able to show you live on air what that calendar's going to look like because we'll be seeing it unravel in front of our eyes just as much as you will, so it's going to be a shocker to everyone if Season 5's calendar turns out to be very good or very bad. We stay on board here with Spencer Brown, still fighting with Alan Alexander as we get in towards the look of the overall grid once again. Just to get a quick look for the data. in between Warner v Todd at the previous interval, 3/4 of a second, 762 thousandths to be precise. That's well over double, I should say, of the gap currently between Brown and Alexander. Another close gap going on farther down the line here. This is Jenkins v Ring. Ethan Ring with VEC Esports. Kyle Jenkins with 5-star. You also see very close gap as well. Side-by-side action here between Sergio Belda and Taylor Wolford. Both of whom were chasing Josh Welbelov of Nexus GT. Into the pits goes Ben Cheeseman. Early pit stop then for the 114. Bear in mind, fixed refueling time of 25 seconds then in this set of regulations. So we'll stay back on board with these two now, back onto the previously attacking angle. We might have to actually go and catch on board here with Alan Alexander, as he does look to be reining in the gap over Cas van Velzen. So back on board with a 315. What looks to be the emerging fight of the top 5 here from Porsche's point of view. Back on board with Alan Alexander, now in the fight of 5th, out through Aintree Corner, down the Wellington Straight. Also into the pit lane at this time was the number, I'm looking here, number 91. Into the pit lane we see in the background goes Cas van Velzen, so it's given clear line of sight for Alan Alexander. It has actually forced him back in technically to that fight of 5th, but not from the angle he would have expected, as you can see approaching very quickly from behind is Spencer Brown. Up the order we can see George Todd still fighting all the way through here. Now more so with William Bajor approaching over his heels at this time in that 333 Mustang. Levi Warner is starting to build a gap over the number 12. 1.3 seconds between those two. As of right now, that gap is continuing to build in this fight here for 5th place. It sort of fizzles out the idea for the time being, as a lot of drivers are starting to pick up on a run into the pit lane. We saw most recently was from Cas van Velzen. Also in the pit lane, noticed Taylor Wolford and Kyle Jenkins. Go and catch on board with the Lamborghini on the exit of the pit lane, Cas van Velzen. We also see just coming in now Andrew Veldkamp in the number 616 Maloir Racing Mustang. In goes the 616. You see on his way out, that's Kyle Jenkins. Just having left the pit lane there is Cas van Velzen. It's a curious one indeed, in his time with Mercedes on what looked like a very confident drive this season, that he would ever think of moving away. But move away he has, and it's been over towards Lamborghini. We saw previously the last Lamborghini to compete on this field was Tyler Vermaak. His 8th manufacturer of choice over his Sunday League career, one that proved to be a bit of a gamble for the South African talent. He's not attended this round for reasons he's told us in preparation for a run of Season 5. We'll see whether or not he stays on with Lamborghini, or if there's other things around the corner then. Well, the number 89. Now Cas van Velzen takes his place as the surrogate Huracan on this grid. As we see down towards Vale and Club Corner, it is a unique vehicle and a bittersweet thing at that. 5.2 litre Lamborghini Audi co-engineered V10, I should say, engine. Replace the 5 litre of the Gallardo. And it is a very unique note. You know the kind of vehicle you're dealing with, and it's a coin toss if you ever hear one of these from afar, whether or not it's a Huracan or an R8 out on circuit. Of course, those two sharing the same engine and a lot of the same design cues in terms of engineering. Lamborghini Huracan very closely overseen by Audi. You see in the pit lane as well, things have started to liven up even more. Ethan Ring is in with VEC Esports joining him in the pit lane at this time, as well as teammate William Bajor. Also in the pits behind him there, you can see is Christian Lebay in his final drive for Aston Martin. You see he drops off the jacks and actually does get up and ahead of William Bajor. So the VEC Esports number 333 just been overtaken by the 119. So he saw a little bit of trouble there because the 119 dropped off the jacks, got out towards the exit line, and I think the engine might have stalled out because you just heard him climb all the way up to red line and burn the rear wheels out. I think he had to restart that car on the go. Nonetheless, he emerges from the pit lane ahead of William Bajor. And this is a terrifying sight indeed. The Rookies champion up against Season 1's champion. Head to head here. That Mustang practically eclipses the titular V12 Vantage on all sides. You can really see in what has been the span of about, between these two cars, about 12 years between these releases. I think 2013 to 2020, so it actually be 11 years, 2013 to 2024. Just how big some of these GTs have become. Into the pit lane next goes Levi Warner and George Todd. Those two into the pit lane now. We'll see Alan Alexander and Spencer Brown follow them in. Gioet Boris, the new driver of the grid, the number 67, currently competing with Porsche in the bright Manthey EMA colours, competing with MSR. Currently find themselves now up into a provisional second place. Also staying out by looks of it there, Brooklyn Donkin to move on to a provisional podium. Dan Junior Poulin stays out as well. He's currently being pursued closely there by 0.6 of a second at the last interval by Ben Meredith in the 317 car. Zolt Beefgartner also into the pit lane at this time. Things are starting to liven up here, dead on towards the halfway mark of this race in 1 minute and 20 seconds. The call therein remains, when will the number 1 be coming in at the lead of this race here, leading now by 21.3 seconds to the nearest car, that being Gioet Boris with MSR Racing in second place. Brooklyn Donkin down in third, only off of Boris there by 3.6 seconds. Warner on his way out. You see the 315, Alan Alexander picks up a stop-and-go 30-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So that's not gone well for him. He emerges right onto the nose cone there of Cas van Velzen's Lamborghini. Not that the Huracan will have to fight too greatly for it, and moving over to usher the Lamborghini on by was Alan Alexander. The 599, the second car to pick up a stop-and-go, that's Zolt Beefgartner with Lexus. There's been a bit of a hefty scramble into the pits, and off goes the 599. Actually, no, it doesn't. My mistake there. Just a bit of a connection trouble. Up the order, we've seen an exchange of position there. Bajor now up and ahead of LeBay. This could serve to be a very good strategic mark here for Christian LeBay. If he can stay in the slipstream of Bajor for as long as possible, he can usher himself into a top 5 fight by the end of this race. Melvin Milliston is into the pit lane at the halfway mark here in Silverstone. Gioet Boris coming in. Brooklyn Donkin following in his trails. Dan Junior Poulin and Ben Meredith stay out to take the lead here in Silverstone. Mikhail Krasnik making his way down towards Brooklyn. Sam Angel not far off his trails down the Wellington Straight. So we see there Gioet Boris, the number 67, moving to the pit lane, and into his pit box he goes with MSR. You see dropping off the jacks, there goes Melvin Milliston on his way out now. So right now, Levi Warner projected to move up to, by looks of things here, second place. Brooklyn Donkin exiting the pit lane, runs side by side with his fellow Mustang for but a moment. And there goes Levi Warner. So he lines himself up currently behind that of Melvin Milliston. Now, in order to sort of unravel exactly what's going on here, that's 69 still behind the number 1, with 2 drivers up over their nose set to come into the pits. You can see both of them right here, Ben Meredith in the Porsche and Dan Junior Poulin in the Ford. Both of these two set to come in. They're still fighting out for what is a provisional lead of things in towards Village and the Loop. It looks to be a grand fight indeed. The 317 looking for it up the inside through the loop on the number 13. Dan Junior Poulin holds the outside of the run towards Aintree. Can the Ford bring it back up through Aintree and down the Wellington Straight? A great move then by Meredith. in this fight on their run in towards the pit lane. Down the Wellington straight we go. The Ford has got the momentum to carry down towards Brooklands. He's got the straight line speed. He puts himself to the inside. They're side by side on the run in through Brooklands. But as we hit Luffield, back up into the lead of things goes Ben Meredith. A great little battle we've seen between the pair, but do either of them take the suggestion of a pit lane run? Not this time around, both of them staying out for another lap. Milliston only on the Wellington straight, so he's really not too far off of where they currently are on track. Behind him is Levi Warner, then George Todd, then Brooklyn Donkin, William Bajor, and Christian LeBay. Van Velzen not far off of their current position as well. Spencer Brown actually currently right now behind LeBay, so I believe, yes, Van Velzen up and ahead of LeBay, as it now has since updated. LeBay and then Brown. You see here, Spencer Brown getting dangerously close to a move up the inside and through Brooklands. He backs out of any suggestion of doing so at this time. He knows that much like the Porsche, the older Astons do have quite the considerable biting force under the brakes. You do not want to toy with that so early on here. We've just passed the halfway mark of this race. Still 27 minutes of racing left to go here at the final stop of Season 4 of the NLRL Sunday League. He'll not be looking to make any brash mistakes on his final run of things. So once we wait to see what the final verdict is on that leading fight between these two, and moreover when they come into the pit lane, they're currently down through Vale and Club Corner on the run down the Hamilton Straight, then we'll get a look once again into where the full grid is currently standing. But for the time being, we'll take a look back round as currently into the pit lane to serve their stop go. We can see here Zolt Beefgartner with Lexus. Let's have a look around the grid to see where the nearest fights are coming from. It is side-by-side action for Spencer Brown and Christian LeBay for but a moment there for 9th place in this race so far. That'll be shoved up towards 7th by the time we see the pit lane runs of the front runners at this time. Around the outside goes the 93 on the 119. Spencer Brown super late on the brakes, carried the momentum through, and that is a grand move from the Ferrari over the Aston Martin in towards Vale and Club Corner. The Aston holding on. We see Gioet Boris gaining ground over these two at this time. The number 67 Porsche with MSR closing in and closing in fast. Speaking of closing in, we can see here a fight amongst the two Fords. Euro Titans up front, VEC out back. Your rookie's champion there, William Bajor, fighting with Brooklyn Donkin. And it's a switchback in through the village loop, and then through the loop, I should say. The village corner, then the loop. Always a confusing section of the track there, those two identical corners. Out through Aintree. Very, very close stuff indeed. You can see it looking to cut off an advance of the inside there, down the Wellington Straight. Good defense so far by Brooklyn Donkin. Very clearly telegraphed. He's not swerving or trying to cause any kind of discomfort here. He's just saying you can't go up the inside. Not this time around. You've got to play the long distance here. I'm not going to make this one easy for you. In through Luffield. He carried all the way to the outside there, and then looks up the inside at Woodcut, I should say. Let's stay on board with these two here. This is looking absolutely fantastic. You see on the Exeter Copse corner, getting closer and closer and closer. Now this is a scary section of the track to be running side by side on. And he backs out of it there. Good intuition carried there by William Bajor. Chief Boyardee 657 said, did everyone do 25-second pit stops? A lot of them seemed short. Yeah, you know what? I'm curious of that too. I was trying to pick up on that in the background, but I didn't want to say anything in case I was maybe just wrong. But it did really look like a lot of those pit stops were quite short. Really short, actually. But not short enough to be last week's regs. So I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't tell you, sadly. And yeah, I'm confused about that one as well, to the concerned viewer in chat. But it's a curious one. We were told coming into this race 25 seconds was the refueling time, the fixed refueling time. If we were told differently, then that's on us, and we'll own up to that, and we'll issue full apology. But I think there's something more at play than just simply that. Race Control saying they saved the preset for this race 100% with full honest certainty that they saved the regs to as they should be. I mean, it did look like a lot of those pit stops were quite short there. Maybe time flies when you're having fun, but obviously for this viewer in chat, they've been with VEC Esports, they've been jumped in the pit lane. I mean, we've already seen as well, having been jumped in the pit lane. We saw it was the 119 got up and around them. That was it was a curious one indeed. We're still watching with this absolutely mega fight here for the top 5. These two Mustangs have been going head to head, and it has been a brutal sight to behold between Bajor and Donkin. These two properly clashing. It's brilliant, brilliant stuff we're seeing here in Silverstone. Now up the inside, Bajor over Donkin. What can he do then? Up the inside through Cop's corner, trying to carry around the outside. Donkin just can't find the momentum. And that is a grand run of things, all things considered. Right behind them looks to be a great fight. Spencer Brown versus Cas van Velzen. Let's go and catch on board with those two. Just scrolling through here, we see Levi Warner up the road from George Todd, still waiting on Ben Meredith to come into the pit lane as all of these positions are slowly being updated. Meanwhile, Melvin Milliston is in second, still waiting for Meredith at this time. Let's go and catch on board, though, with that fight going on between Ferrari and Lamborghini. Cas van Velzen versus Spencer Brown. We see Brooklyn Donkin moves over to let Van Velzen through, and by proxy lets Spencer Brown through as well. So on board with Van Velzen, let's try and catch on board with the attacking point of view with the Ferrari of Spencer Brown, just so we can get a clear line of sight of things. He's stuck in the middle here with two Euro Titans cars on all sides around him. One over his nose, one on his rear bumper. Not a nice place for the Thatch GT number 93 Ferrari to be on his way out through Abbey. Out through Farm, in towards the village. This is currently all in that contention for what is by proxy 5th place when you consider the fight with Bajor up front. More realistically, it's a fight of 6th. Back on board once again with Spencer Brown in the 93 Thatch GT car. Van Velzen holding the inside down the Wellington. Later on the brakes goes Spencer Brown. Tries to go for a late apex through Brooklands, but just can't find the momentum. Tried to get the hammer down, but just nothing came of it. Working with 4 less cylinders in the engine fight with that Lamborghini. 21 minutes left to go. Up towards Woodcote. He's got the run, though, out of Luffield. As the gears start to pick up a little bit here, he has got the run. He's in the slipstream, but he's just not close enough to be making moves side by side down at Cops. Down through Maggots, then Beckett's, and then Chapel. Onto the hangar straight. These two inseparable at this time. And see these muscling his way to the inside. He tried to put a little bit of a breaker there on the mindset of Cas van Velzen, and that has been fantastic psychological warfare for Thatch GT, because they've just put a little bit of a blinder there on a driver that has been oh so unshakable through his career in the Sunday League. That is a very rare thing to do. On a driver that was an absolute menace at his time with Porsche last season, that has been quite a shocker to see anyone rattle Van Velzen like that. Even for but a moment. He's normally a driver completely stoic in his drives here in the Sunday League. A force of nature when pushed to it. And we see onto the grass goes Spencer Brown, slides up and up off 4 wheels. I don't believe that. What a leap that was. Get a look at this on the replays just quickly. Up off of 4 wheels. He was flying. I was trying to say he was flying, then I said he was fup. What does that mean? Up off 4 wheels then. That is grand. How is he still in the fight inside of that top 10? I simply could not tell you. Could not tell you. Let's just get a look at that one more time. Just one for the road, please, please. Right at the very end of the season. I cannot tell you. I don't think I've ever seen an incident where a car's got that much airtime. Watch this. Oh my goodness. Well, at the very least, Thatch GT can consider their odds as the next budding aerospace manufacturer of this grid. He's down to 14th, though. That's a mighty shame. I was saying, how is he still in the top 10 fight? Because we were saying that on the live view. We couldn't see his position, but we could see he was right behind Donkin. But that's down Donkin by a lap. Oh, my goodness. Oh, you don't reckon that maybe it's shoved him down that far because he's cut a considerable portion of the track? Now, we had this issue in another championship. It was a Competizione Performance League's GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series in Alton Park. If you cut a specific area of the track between Island Bend and the Shell Oils curve, it completely nullifies your lap entirely. It cuts you down a lap. Yeah, so yeah, exactly the point I'm making there. We just seen in chat, chiming in once again, the Season 2 champion, long-time viewer of the channel as well, Jason Bush, chiming in with the same conclusion we've met there. And same with DT King. That is, I want to say DT King 96. Remind me, you're Tangway, aren't you? I might be wrong. Apologies if I am. Well, there we see resided to the pit lane. It's a bittersweet end to things there for Spencer Brown. Knew I was right there. And we see more trouble this time, actually, for the 69 and the 12. That's George Todd and Levi Warner. So we've missed this one out. In the wall at this time is Fats GT, once again in trouble in Sector 1. Formerly Sector 1, Sector 3. Trouble for the 93, now trouble again, this time for the 69. Fats GT have been met with both barrels of the most unfortunate circumstances this time around in Silverstone. Not the best way to end a season, but considering those two will be seeing the pro standings next season, it's going to be an exciting one when they get a clean slate. Fats GT can stand to fight 10 toes on business with everyone else in the team's championship. Milliston in the lead of the charge then, nearly 3/4 of an hour into round 10, 16.5 minutes left to go. Let's take a look around the field to see where some nearby fights are coming from. One I want to put on notice here, having slipped their way through, and it's been a very silent procession for Gio et Boris, the Serbian driver in the number 67 here with MSR. He has been a remarkable talent on this field. I am very curious to see what he does in the rookies next season, since this is his first race, and I believe the cap for qualifying for the pro standings is having competed in at least, and I think this was paraphrasing what I was told a couple hours ago. It was about, I think it's 3 or 4 races you have to compete. I think it's 3 you have to have competed in at minimum at the end of a season to qualify for the pro category. And that's on specific circumstances. That's if you've entered for the last sort of like 3 or so rounds for that matter, not if you pick 3 rounds over the course of a season. I don't think it works that way. Of course, feel free to correct me in due course. But for this one, since this is his first time, next season he will be in that Rookies Championship. And I see some serious upside potential. Now, looking back through those last couple of results, may I remind you, the last 2 weeks we have seen race wins from rookies outright. Alan Alexander and Levi Warner, both of them rookies this season, took wins overall ahead of even their contemporaries in the pro category. This could be huge, as I think we could be seeing the makings of next season's rookies champion. This season's has been William Bajor. Keep an eye on Gio et Boris, the number 67 Porsche. If we hope to see him again in Season 5, that could be an interesting story to tell. 15 minutes left to go. We'll stay on board with these two in their fight for 4th place, Van Velzen v Boris, as we take a look around the field. Melvin Milliston in the lead of the charge of this race right now, ahead of George Todd in 2nd, William Bajor, your rookies champion, in 3rd place. Van Velzen currently fighting with Gio et Boris, the Porsche on your screen at this time, in 5th place. That's currently for the fight of 4th. Brooklyn Donkin in 6th, LeBay 7th, and Poulin in 8th. Ben Meredith in 9th, with Jenkins in 10th, Ethan Ring in 11th, with Mikhail Krasnik in 12th place. Josh Welbelov up to 13th, with Sergio Belter 14th, Taylor Wolford in 15th, Alan Alexander in 16th, Sam Angel 17th, Ivan Sanchez 18th, Andrew Velkamp 19th, and Levi Warner in 20th. Ben Cheeseman in 21st, Spencer Brown 22nd, and Carl Martel 23rd. All 3 of those from the pit lane, and so I'm told that's the same story as well for the 114. So the 114 is in the pit lane, that's already a given, but the 69 as well. So back on board with these two. We've seen at least a few times in this race now. We saw it earlier in a previous fight for Van Velzen.
And I believe that was at the time with the 93 of Spencer Brown. We are starting to see that Lamborghini. I don't know whether or not he's been feeling as if he's being pressured for the inside line and he's trying to give some of the spaces to not be taken out. But we are starting to see that Lamborghini wash out quite wide here. And I must say, this is a very bizarre sight watching these two go head-to-head because, of course, astute viewers of TRTN and the NLRL Sunday League will remember that this was the very same vehicle Cas van Veltzen drove last season. The Manthey EMA Porsche, the livery there, instead of the 67 was the number 420. And I'm seeing a lot of the same qualities in that drive in this one here. So Van Veltzen is effectively fighting a driver embodying his past in this sport. And they're side by side right now, past versus present in the mind of Cas van Veltzen. But let's take it for what it is. And it's a brand new driver in their debut here, going head to head in the final stop of Season 4 with a very reputable name. A driver that has very, very scarcely buckled or yielded in the face of any kind of pressure. And he has really been given some by the bucketful here by the number 67. Looking up the inside, I mean, it's getting rash between these two now. I fear for a collision in the next 12 minutes by the way these two are pushing each other right onto the ragged edge. It's one of the closest fights currently on track. Looking up towards Village, and that Porsche again, much as we saw last season, really solid under braking, and much as we see a little bit here this season in Kyle Army. Van Veltzen still finding his footing with Lamborghini, and what has definitely been an ambitious decision in his last two bouts have been with Mercedes and Porsche, and to move over to a very bizarre choice, I would say. If he was going to pick mid-engine, I would have taken it that maybe Van Veltzen would have moved over to McLaren or Ferrari first before ever giving Lamborghini a stab. But clearly this has been something reinforced for the last couple of races. He's been wanting to do this and has got the clearance for it in this round. Wanted to make sure that his team wasn't affected and that Euro Titans could still fight for the team's championship. I fear, though, at this time they may not be close enough to take the team's championship away from Velocity. Bear in mind, coming into today's round, they were 37 points away. And those top 2 point scorers right now are going to be Cas van Veltzen and Brooklyn Donkin. That's how it works so far in the team's championship. Now, if I bring back up the scoring just to the right-hand side here, this is the scoring system for Season 4. 45 points is how much Melvin Milliston looks to be taking away. That would be 48 if he holds on to the fastest lap in today's race. And then we take a look at the positions Euro Titans are currently accrediting for in that fight. So they, bear in mind, need to outscore by 37 points. As we see here, a continued side-by-side fight between Gio Boris and Cas van Veltzen. So this could still fall down a peg for these two at the moment. 4th and 6th, so they have 27 and 21. That's 48. So they are dead on level. So even from where they stand right now, unless they can start taking away from the fastest lap, they will find themselves dead on scoring the same amount. They'll still be 37 points away when the checkered flag drops. And Velocity will be taking that team's championship as the way it currently stands. So looking up the inside, the 67. Again, I'm saying this time and time again. These two have been properly brutalizing one another here in Silverstone. I do fear for the worst in the case of these two because their fight is about to boil over. Now up and around into 4th place, Gio Boris with Porsche and MSR Racing. In towards Brooklands, then Luffield. Van Veltzen back up the inside, up back into 4th. A very brief exchange, mind you, but what will be the rebuttal from the number 67? Sadly, because of the quite sudden nature of a lot of these changes and some of these drivers' introductions, we don't actually have graphics to hand for either of them, so it's a pity we can't show you the fancy graphics at the bottom of your screens that you've been seeing in the same format for the last 3 seasons, introduced back in Season 2. We don't don't show any signs of moving away from the driver placards as it is right now. We've had a few design suggestions we might be considering for Season 5. We'll wait to see where that goes, but the same basic format will be sticking around for another season. Let's stay on board, though, with what is currently the battle of 4th. In towards Stowe corner, again looking up the inside, the number 67 over the number 420. He's got the run, but then the Lamborghini picks back up a little bit of steam there just to hold himself to the inside at Vale and Club corner. The Porsche going the long way around. It'll be to the inside at Club. It could be contact. They do bump there in through Club corner. Going out wide, the number 420 of Van Velzen rejoins onto the Hamilton straight with more momentum to carry than the Porsche. Running out wide through the village, now into the loop. Van Velzen, you can see, just scooting his way up to the inside. Couldn't find it just through the loop there, out through Aintree. You can see he's just sneaking underneath the rear view of that Porsche. Down the Wellington straight we go to Brooklands. 7 minutes left to go here in Silverstone. These two functionally looking at about 3.5 more laps before the end of this race. Of course, that's decided by the car up front, and about half a lap away from them at this time is the number 1 of Melvin Milliston, who himself is about 7 minutes away from race win number 16. This has been an ecstatic little fight here for 4th place between Cas Van Velzen on his inaugural drive for Lamborghini and Gioet Boris on his first ever drive in the Sunday League. Sadly, he's missed the cut-off point to be put into the pro category. He'll compete from the rookies unless instructed otherwise, but I do see the makings here of the next season's rookies champion in this one here. Keep a close one on the 67 in Season 5. We do hope to see him again out through Chapel. And he's held on to position there, 3/10 up the road from Cas Van Velzen as we head in towards the hangar straight on lap 26. You can see in the background there, Brooklyn Donkin 5 seconds away in 6th place. So now with that recent shift as well in their point scoring positions, they've moved from 4th and 6th to 5th and 6th. So where that currently puts them now, where they were originally looking to take away 48 points to put themselves dead level to the leading Melvin Milliston. 5th and 6th now, they're only bringing away 45 points, so they would need to hope someone else comes and takes away the fastest lap, unless they finish just dead on with Milliston at this time. That'd actually be 3 points off of him, so it would be up to, I think, a 40-point gap to be more precise. Regardless, the writing is on the wall here for Euro Titans. Did enter a little later on than they'd like into this championship, but nonetheless put on a grand challenge to Velocity. I would say more specifically here, let's put pen to paper here. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. It has been a one-man show for the Velocity team. It has been carried on its shoulders the entire season by one man, and one very exceptional man, I must say as well. 15 race wins under his belt, the first ever multiple-time Sunday League champion. He has set records throughout his time here, through 4 seasons of competition on and off, 2 full-time. I mean, you got to hand it off to him. Respect where respect is due. He has really laid in the courses of history in the Sunday League in the last 2 seasons. So Velocity have got a very special driver there. Hold on to him for every ounce you've got, because that is not the kind of driver one lets slip away through the cracks of history. Meanwhile, in this fight for 4th, 1.4 seconds now, 1.5 between Boris and Van Velzen. This is going to be an exciting one if we hope to see this in the first round of next season. Curious one indeed. Looking around the field then to see where the nearest fights are coming from after that last one just gone. We've got word through the Twitch chat. Now, we won't confirm this for certain, but we've got pretty high chances here that both of the Fats GT cars we've been seeing in the last couple of races in this championship, Levi Warner and Spencer Brown among them, will be competing in Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League. That's, of course, subject to change during the off-season, which will be roughly about 2 or 3 weeks in and around that point. We're looking to potentially get the ball rolling for Sunday League Season 5 in and around February 8th. Now, I'm not going to say that for certain, so don't Don't quote me on that one. That's not a definite release date for Season 5, but that's the earliest we can get it rolling, so that's where we're going to aim to get it rolling. Looking around the field, things have definitely spread out here in Silverstone as the dust begins to settle. We see a gap starting to close in. This is Josh Welbelov versus Mikhail Krasnik for 13th place. Ferrari versus BMW in towards Valen Club Corner. 3 minutes left to go. We'll not long be getting on board with the number 1 McLaren of Melvin Milliston and Velocity Racing. Do see even more trouble for the 719 Sam Angel. What has been an abrupt re-entry to this series. Now, he had very high chances throughout the start of the season to be the Rookies champion, but vanished off the radar for some time. It was a pity that we couldn't see him on the grid for longer, and that's ultimately been that huge block of no attendances that has put a serious hamper on his chances for this season's Rookies Championship. For Angel, though, he can still remain hopeful. He is a solid driver on this grid, but he's got to sort of pick himself up now and within the next couple of weeks if we are to expect to see the same kind of performance we had at the start of the season for him come to fruition next season. Looking around the field as well, I mean, coming up onto what is going to be his final lap, not long from now, in this Aston Martin at least, is Christian Lebay. The driver may not be going anywhere in this grid. We'll be seeing him next season with Jaguar, but it is going to be a pretty heartfelt goodbye from both the Malwar Racing team and TRTN and NLRL for that matter to its most iconic car on this grid, the 2013 Aston Martin V12 Vantage. Really, I don't know where we'll quite be without it. It has been with us since Misano in round 1 of Season 1 of the NLRL Sunday League. We saw him fight in a three-way fight in the midfield in that 119. It was one of the most striking parts of that grid. I remember when it was purple, I think. It was purple and green, then it was white and green by the end of Season 1. And then moved over to the Malwar Racing colours that it has now held on to towards the end of Season 2, in through Season 3, and now Season 4, and its final foray, and it's coming up onto its final lap. We saw the final lap confirmed from the number 1, so we'll be catching on board with Milliston not long from now, but it has been quite a long-standing legacy, and Lebay does hold on to a record in his own right here, 2 records as a matter of fact, and it has been the only driver in the history of the NLRL Sunday League to go a full season in a championship fight without winning a single race, but to take a championship at the end of it all. He did that in Season 1 with the V12 Vantage. Moreover, he holds the all-time record here on the Sunday League for the longest stint for any driver and car matchup. 43 races after today he spent with the V12 Vantage, and no other machine could fill that void for him until today, because he'll be disbanding his time with Aston Martin to greener pastures with Jaguar, when it's going to be a broad new horizon then for him, and one that we're told could lead to some serious upside potential in his flying laps and in his overall pace coming up into Season 5. We'll see where that goes for him as we see heading down towards the line here and the final stop on what has been a legendary season for this one. For Melvin Milliston, it has been 15 race wins so far this season. 2 championships, the first multi-time champion in the history of the Sunday League, and he was not content with stopping to set records there. He set the lap record once again here in Silverstone, and as we catch on board with Milliston down through Woodcote Corner, a 2-time champion comes to the line to make it race win number 16 for the number 1. And that is the nail in the coffin that puts Velocity Racing Team as the 2026 Season 4 Sunday League Teams Champions. They passed the mantle over from Malwar Racing in Season 3. It has been a one-man show conducted by the Super Swede, the number 1 of Melvin Milliston. An unstoppable performance this season, and at the final stop did not rest for but a second. Brutal dominance of the field for race win number 16. George Todd in second place. William Bajor, the Rookies champion, then takes 3rd place and the Rookies division win. Gio Boris second in Rookies class, 4th outright, ahead of Cas van Veltzen in 5th,
with Euro Titans. They're the runners-up for the Teams Championship this season. We'll be seeing a much more engaged run of them next season. They won't have any delayed entries this time for Season 5. And what a drive it has been. We'll get the full results rolling in as and when we can. But your three major takeaway winners of this season, starting things off in the overall Drivers' Championship. Melvin Milliston wins that in Season 4. The Rookies' Championship won by William Bajor. And the Teams' Championship won by Velocity Racing Team. And the only member of that on this grid is Melvin Milliston. One-man army. The number one, soon to have 2 stars next to that Swedish flag on the placard, in something I never thought I'd ever see myself do. A multiple-time champion. Absolutely brilliant. We look to catch on board with the 119. You can see it's the final stop for what has been Sunday League's most iconic vehicle. 43 races, 1 championship. So many fantastic moments. It's led races. It's been bundled out of races. It has seen hell and high water. But now all good things must come to an end. It's the end of an era for Christian LeBay with Aston Martin. He'll be moving over to Jaguar for Season 5. It is a bittersweet thing. It is the last of the V12s, the last of its kind. That 2013 V12 Vantage. One does wonder, will we ever come to see a car as iconic again here on the Sunday League? One can only want to imagine. Many have been in the same position. Very few have been as irreplaceable on that grid as the V12 Vantage. I'm sure this is something quite heartfelt as well for LeBay behind the wheel, just taking one last stroll of the track. The car that he has spent so long with. 4 seasons. It is a very close bond he's held with this machine. And he has given absolute hell to the rest of the grid. In a car long thought to be outclassed in the current day, he has shown it is anything but. Down the Wellington Straight then for the last time here at its home turf, not far from the factory where it was created some 13 years ago. It's very bizarre, actually. I was at Silverstone a few months ago at the festival, the Silverstone Festival, and actually what was there was a 2013 V12 Vantage. It was a very bizarre thing to run into in the flesh. As we see there, blasting to the line for the last time, Christian LeBay with Aston Martin. What a time it has been then for this one. Taking a look at those full results, we'll get them through in a moment's time. The end of an era for Aston Martin. That might be the last Aston we ever see. One can hope for a future with more Astons in it, but I think that might be the end for such a legendary brand on this grid. Well, taking a look at the full results then, as well, we'll have to bring those results up a little later on. Actually, wait, hang on. Haha! See, I have technology to my aid. I didn't even realize the last results are out. So let's take a look here, and what we're going to do is we are going to just pause that so we could just watch. And there you can see the final results. Oh, no, it didn't actually pause. Oh, bother. Ah, here we go. I pressed the wrong button. That's what it was. Ah, there. See, now we can pause it. Fantastic. I am fully in control of the machinery that I've created. So, we can see the final result there. Melvin Milliston wins in Silverstone. George Todd second. William Bajor third. Gioet Boris in 4th place with Cas van Veltzen in 5th. Brooklyn Donkin 6th. Christian LeBay 7th. Dan Junior Poulon in 8th. Ben Meredith 9th. Kyle Jenkins in 10th. Ethan Ring in 11th. Alan Alexander in 12th. Mikhail Krasnik 13th. Sergio Belder 14th. Josh Welbelow 15th. Taylor Wolford in 16th, Sam Angel 17th, Ivan Sanchez 18th, and Andrew Veldkamp in 19th. So there's your full results, and well, there's a little bit of hodgepodge from us right at the very end of the season. I think we're getting a little bit too engrossed in that section there about the V12 Vantage, and well, obviously with every reason to. It's a car that's held a lot of history here in the Sunday League. It is quite sad to see it go, but onwards and upwards, and it could be an exciting season to follow with the arrival of Jaguar. So let's get on to something we have held up since the last sort of season of things here on the Sunday League, just as we're quickly doing a test fire of the system just to make sure it's all good for stream. And so now let's get a look here with a bit of a time-honoured tradition here in the NLRL Sunday League. You see the return of the wheel. And here we have all of the tracks on ACC. Now, I think the only one that's not on this list is the N24. I think that's the only one that's not on here at this time. And I think that's simply just because we can't necessarily fit that onto the calendar. We might have it to be a case where if we land Nürburgring here, what we'll do, and I'll tell you what, this is going to be more fun. If it lands on Nürburgring at any one point here, we'll put it to a poll. GP or N24. That'll be up to you. You get the say now in Season 5, but that's if we get Nürburgring. So do cross your fingers here, folks. This is going to be an exciting one. So you see the calendar there, completely blank, rounds 1 to 10. Now, race lengths and regulations such as double sprints and endurance lengths that we saw over the course of the last 2 seasons, that will be decided after the calendar. But this is running in sequence 1 to 10. We can't change the order of this. All we can change is whether or not, if we land on Nürburgring, is it N24 or GP? So let's get the wheel rolling, let's say here. Let's see what the first circuit is going to be then, folks. And we find ourselves starting off the season at Suzuka in Mie Prefecture, Japan. So at the home of the Japanese Grand Prix. That's going to be an exciting one here in the 5th season of the NLRL Sunday League. So that's your first circuit then, Suzuka, to be the first round of the championship. Now bringing up the second round, where will we find ourselves after Japan? We'll be heading into Laguna Seca, where we were just last weekend, as a matter of fact. That was a great race. Hopefully it'll be a little bit cooler than we found it here in Season 4. Well, we'll be heading to Monterey County, California for the second round of Season 5. Let's get on to where our third round will be taking us. Bear in mind, this will be comprising that first half of the championship, and we'll be heading over towards Zandvoort. Will we? Or is it going to tip over to Zolder? So close. Yes, it's Zolder in Heusden, Zolder, Belgium. Heading over to the home of the Zolder 24 Hours, the baby brother of the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, also briefly held the Belgian Grand Prix. That's going to be a fantastic little venue for round 3. Bringing us into round 4 then. Let's see where we go. Having a look here, what can it be? It's going to be, oh, please let it be. Yes, it's Mount Panorama in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. Home of the Bathurst 1000. What a great circuit. That one is a favourite of ours here on TRTN, up there with Silverstone as some of our favourite circuits to visit. What a grand one that's going to be. Round 4 of the championship at Bathurst. Let's see what's up next then for the session halfway. Round 5 of Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League takes us to Magyarország, Pest County, Hungary, at the Hungaroring, home of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Okay, I mean, this is looking actually pretty good so far. Varied is words I would pretty much bring to the table on that one. Unorthodox, perhaps. Let's see what else we get, though. I'm curious. I am curious. Let's see what we get. Round 6 of the championship. We're into the second half, and we're going to Paul Ricard, Le Castellet, France, former home of the French Grand Prix. Okay. Now, that's a crowd splitter. Not many people are big fans of that track. I'm curious to see what the grid can make of it. I think we've seen quite a few controversial races on TRTN at Paul Ricard. There was that flashpoint back in VSR Phoenix Season 8 between White Doctor and Just Boris. We'll see what that can produce on the Sunday League grid. Getting a look into the next one here. Where do we go? It's going to be Donington Park in Leicestershire. Brilliant track. Runs right opposite East Midlands Airport. A great, great circuit. I had the pleasure of going there myself in person a few years back. Great, great venue. That's going to be a brilliant one into the second half of the championship. Good following act there. Now into round 8, getting up towards the final 3 rounds of Season 5's calendar. And we're heading to Zandvoort, home of the Dutch Grand Prix. That's going to be a good one. I think we saw that not too long ago on the Sunday League calendar. We'll see what that is going to produce this season. Now the final 2 rounds. Still quite a few tracks there on the calendar yet to have been accounted for. And we're heading to Monza by looks of it there. Is it going to tip over to Nürburgring? No, it's going to be Monza, home of the Italian Grand Prix. Europe's first ever dedicated motor racing course that was built in 1922. That was a great circuit last time we visited it in the Sunday League. Do look forward to that one. And now your final round of NLRL Sunday League Season 5, as according to the wheel, where do we go? It's going to be Alton Park in Little Budworth, Cheshire, if I'm not mistaken. That's where it is, and that's going to be a fun one. Of course, on the Alton estate, former farmland turned estate turned US military garrison during the Second World War. Very fun little circuit. Quite the gem. We've been there quite a few times. That's not too bad. I would say in the grand scheme, it's varied. Has it been as legendary as Season 4? That's up for you to decide. From my personal standpoint, having a look at that, with the wheel now having gone away, it is really not too bad. I'll be honest with you, that is not too shabby. That is not too shabby whatsoever. Now, there's going to be some interesting points in all of this. I'm looking forward to, I think the most interesting events on that calendar for me, I'm pointing this one out, is going to be round 5, round 6. Not many people like either of these two circuits in the ACC community. That much has been said. Hungaroring and Paul Ricard are in a very Marmite spot in terms of fan popularity. But I'm curious to see how the Sunday League grid tackles that one, especially at Paul Ricard. Down the Mistral Straight, without that chicane that they have on the French Grand Prix, that's going to be a curious one to see where that one takes up. Sadly, we're without Silverstone this time. I am a bit gutted about that one, but hey-ho, we've got Mount Panorama at round 4. That's going to be good. Not too bad. I will say that much. That really is not too bad. I'm looking forward to this one. A finale track at Alton Park, though. Imagine that. Championship maybe is like a 2-3-way split like we had in Season 3, and they're having a fight in Alton Park. Oh, my goodness. I wouldn't even want to imagine how brutal that could get. Suzuka as an opening circuit as well. Curious one indeed. Of course, we're coming back to Suzuka in the Console Endurance Series in a few months' time. Back to the 4 hours. That's going to be an interesting one as well. Seika as a starting round, like the opening 4 or 5 rounds as well. A lot of drivers gain that baseline. Seika is a tough one to throw them in early. Zolder as well, back to back there. That's evil. That is a bit evil. And then Panorama as well. That's going to be an interesting first half, make no mistake of it. But there is your calendar for Sunday League Season 5 as per the wheel. And that is as follows. Round 1, Suzuka. Round 2, Laguna Seca. Round 3, Zolder. Round 4, Mount Panorama. Round 5, Hungaroring. Round 6, Paul Ricard. Round 7, Donington Park. Round 8, Zandvoort. Round 9, Monza. And round 10 at Alton Park. Well, it has been quite a interesting last couple of weeks then here on TRTM. We see that still in the pit lane, just spending the last of his moments with the Aston Martin, is Christian Lebay of Maloir Racing. And it has been really quite the season indeed. You can see there that whole second half was delayed by the huge technical delays that was across the board on console ACC just toward the end of November. That pushed quite a few events into 2026 here, in namely for round 8, 9 and 10 with Kyle Army, Laguna Seca, and today at Silverstone. Nonetheless, it has been a fantastic season. We would like to thank all of the drivers for showing out to this championship, for giving us this fantastic performance across the board. Very well done to all of our champions today. For the Teams Championship winners over at Velocity Racing, for the overall championship drivers winner, Melvin Milliston, for his 2nd consecutive championship, mind you, as well. And for the Rookies Championship, William Bajor of VEC Esports. We'd also like to thank our sponsors at Maloir Transport, who have sponsored us throughout the last 4 seasons now of the NLRL Sunday League. We've had an inseparable tie here on TRTN. It would not be possible without their support to bring you these broadcasts week in, week out. I mean, it has been an absolutely legendary season. We cannot thank all of you enough. And of course, thank you as well to the viewers, for tuning in every week, for showing the support for your favorite drivers, for clipping, for showing support for whatever. Just tuning in and watching is more than enough in our books. And it has been a brilliant, brilliant season. On to another one then, as we hit Season 5 in a few weeks' time. Still working out the exact ordering of the exact starting times and all of the session times as well. But all of that is going to be worked out in the next couple of weeks. For now, though, our Sunday League grid will be on a little bit of a break for the Sunday races. Next week, though, on Sunday, I'm pretty sure we do have, on the 1st of February, a new event coming up with the Competizione Performance League that'll be filling in for what is normally a Sunday League slot. That comes up next Sunday. We'll have more information as things go on throughout the week here on TRTN. It's going to be a busy one as well, getting back in tune with MSC for Season 3 on Friday. I mean, there's a lot to pick up. We'll get into that. First race of the week coming up a little later on. That'll be Wednesday evening for Eastern Standard, Tuesday evening, sorry, for Eastern Standard Time, and Wednesday morning for Greenwich Mean Time. That'll be Competizione Performance League
GT4 Pro-Am Cup America. We'll be getting on to the next round of that. Until then, that's all from us here on TRTN. A brilliant broadcast week then, and thank you all so much for watching. It has been such a pleasure this season from us here, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.